Yo, what's up, everybody? Dr. D. So, listen, today we're going to talk about longevity. I know everybody wants to live longer, including me, and we want to die late as young as possible. What does that mean? Die late as young as possible. So, we don't want to die late and also have a poor quality of life. You don't want to live all the way to 60 and then struggle all the way to 90, right? You want to live to 90 and then just go peacefully, or at 150. And I know some people are saying, even longer, whatever. I hope you get there. I hope you hit that target. But so, is anti-aging a real thing? I'm not a big fan of the term anti-aging. I like the term longevity better, but there's many different aspects to this conversation, and the terms might vary a little bit. But now, when you go to medical school, let's start with the training that doctors get nowadays. When you go to medical school, is there a book, or a semester or a test that is called the anti-aging test or the anti-aging semester or anti-aging class? No, there's no such thing. Or longevity, whatever you want to call it, whatever term you want to use. There's no such thing. Quite on the contrary, still in medical school, it's still not seen so much as let's say, real medicine, as sometimes I'll hear traditional doctors quote. But there are now universities and so forth that are starting to develop strong regenerative medicine programs. That's another name. You'll see that more as perhaps a more official name, which is regenerative medicine, which consists in sometimes actually promoting regeneration of organs and things like that, or let's not say so much organs, but functionality of those organs, right? And that's where you'll see a lot of stem cell research, and peptide medicine research, etc. But it's still research. So lots of times there's that problem where something's cutting edge and research, but it's not FDA approved, and it's going to take forever to get FDA approved, and it takes forever to get taught. So I don't think it's actually going to be a go-to discipline, longevity medicine or regenerative medicine. I don't think it's going to be a go-to discipline in our lifetime. Does it have the potential? Yes, but it takes forever for not only in medicine, but forever for many times for people that are set in their ways, or a whole industry that's set in their ways to do the pivot and shift. And we know that because, just look into history, all the way from discussing if our world was square or round, right? Galileo, I like to use him as an example, to um, men in ships dying from scurvy in England, and where I forgot the name of the doctor right now, that figured out that, hey, to give these guys some lemons, they need some vitamin C, instead of giving these people that are going off on ships potatoes only. Give them some vitamin C, that these guys will be able to come back without the scurvy. That took nearly 200 years. Or Dr. Semmelweis with hand washing, that took like another 30 years or so, for the medical community to understand, hey, we need to wash hands before actually doing medical procedures. So it takes some time. So I'm not expecting longevity or regenerative medicine or anti-aging to be a discipline, an official discipline like cardiology and rheumatology, physiology, or et cetera, to be taught in our schools. But here's the cool part. Can physicians learn about this? Absolutely. So there's an organization, a wonderful organization in the United States called A4M, the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine. Really, really cool. They teach physicians about anti-aging. So you can actually go there, your physician can go there. And I mean, I've been to these conferences. They had one last weekend, which I heard was a blast. I didn't get to go, but I heard was awesome. A good friend of mine told me it was probably the biggest conference he's ever seen, of doctors, actually, doctors and other professionals conglomerating there to learn about anti-aging. And I said, man, or I was on the phone with them, like, that's so cool, because people are starting to embrace this and understand this, right? So it's very important, if you're watching this and if you're looking to understand, hey, anti-aging, longevity, regenerative medicine, stem cells, peptides, this, bioidentical hormones, blah, blah, blah. If you're listening to this, more than likely you're curious, or you're inclined towards telling your doc, hey, I want to do more than a checkup. I want to do something more than preventative. I want to do something to optimize. I want to do something to live a healthier life. I want to do something to feel better, look better, have more energy, etc. I mean, forget the anti-aging with the, or not the anti-aging, but the treatment for, decreasing wrinkles and so forth that you put on the outside, all the stuff that you put on the outside. How about the stuff that you put on the inside? That's how you really do anti-aging. It's not all these surgeries and so forth, because you know what? You're still going down, your body's putrefying as time goes by. So what? Your face is all stretched out and so forth, but how are your organs? How are the molecular systems in your body, the biological systems in your body? Because once those are healthier, your outside looks healthier too. In not such a distant future, I know we're going to be able to actually take your biological information, so the stuff in your blood, etc., and show you different renditions of what that person's biological makeup will equate to that person outside, versus that same person with a poor biological makeup, and what they will look like outside as well. So basically take you like, hey, say you're 35 years old, and show the person, hey, here's you at 45 with this kind of biology, and this is what you look like. 45 with this kind of biology, and this is what you look like. And 45 with like terrible biology, and this is what you look like. And you'll be able to see like, oh, in and out, the differences. So it's a topic that's here to stay. But now you say, let's dive a little bit deeper. How do we really do anti-aging? Is longevity medicine a real thing? Is regenerative medicine a real thing, etc.? Now, this is a personal way of structuring this kind of medicine. It's my personal way of understanding this, because what gets measured gets improved, right? So you want to measure something to be able to play with those numbers, improve those numbers, to improve your outcomes and get the outcomes that you want, right? So once you understand that, you can actually start to study the rate of aging, really. And this is where you get into death prediction studies, because longevity also goes with death, right? Death prediction studies. So there's companies, and there's a company that I love called True Age Diagnostics. It's run by a friend of mine, Ryan Smith, that is really good at, and they're like at the forefront of really pushing all the studies as it relates to longevity medicine. Okay, so epigenetic clocks, I know that's a new word. Epigenetic clocks, they're real and they're here to stay. So what are those? Those are clocks that are measuring your rate of aging, right? And some of these clocks, people are like, how old am I really? What do you mean, how old am I really? Well, in my case, for example, I'm 37 years old currently, but these epigenetic clocks are able to tell you your real age. What do you mean your real age? Your real age, in my case, is not the 37 birthdays that I'm saying. It's not. That's not the real age. The real age is what my DNA is perceiving of the damage it has received, and thus that's consequently my real age. My real age is what my DNA is saying, right? That's because you'll see, it's interesting. Somebody will have a heart attack at 55. Right, and precluding that this person doesn't have like LDL little a and other things that can, genetic modifiers that can lead to a heart attack. So say two genetically very similar people, one will have a heart attack at 55 and the other one can have a heart attack at 95. So what's the difference, right? Again, precluding the other outliers that would, or variables that would lead that person to have a heart attack sooner, and assuming that they're both very genetically similar, say twins, right? So why do you see these differences? So with epigenetic clocks, we can actually study what's happening with that person at a cellular level or a genetic level, okay? So very interesting. It's very interesting to understand that these clocks, they've only been around since 2015. So we had the first generation of these epigenetic clocks. Right now, currently, We're at about the third generation of these epigenetic clocks, and we should be coming into the fourth generation of these epigenetic clocks, right? So the first generation of these epigenetic clocks, or also called I'll use a specific one here, like the Horvath clock, after Dr. Horvath, which I believe he coined the term anti-aging. I'm not sure, but I personally think he'll perhaps end up winning a Nobel Prize for the amazing work that he's done. But so those first clocks were pretty good, but they failed a lot, and they still do fail. You can still use them today. They still do fail to measure the person's real age. For me, it doesn't work accurately. And I'll tell you guys why. Once you use these clocks, if I'm not mistaken, these first generation clocks, they measure about 353 locations on a gene versus the clocks that we have today, which measure about 80,000 locations. So if there's a tiny variation in one of these clocks, today in the third generation clocks, it's significant versus one small variation before, it wasn't as significant. So when I look at my age in the first generation clocks, it'll actually show me to be older. So it's like, oh, Dr. D, you're full of it. So because you do all this stuff and you're actually aging, you just said that the clock tells you that you're older. Yeah, it told me that I was, I don't know, in my 40s or something. And so that's not the case. Thank God. Because using these third generation clocks, it doesn't tell me my age, but it tells me that I am the rate of aging. Okay. My rate of aging last year was 85%. Instead of me aging 100% of the year, I was aging at 85% of the year. You don't want to be aging at 100% of the year. That's accelerated aging. So see, that's cool. You can measure now if you have accelerated aging or decelerated aging. So you can actually measure those regenerative efforts, longevity efforts, and anti-aging efforts, whatever you want to call it. You can actually measure this. So I was aging at 85% last year. This year, 2022, I'm aging at 75% of the year, which puts me at the top 10 percentile of actually the lab that's doing the testing. So that's freaking awesome. And like, that's a number like, man, that's so cool. That number is such a big target for me because I want to lower it. Apparently the record's at 60%. So I want to go to 59 and then lower that, right? So that's so freaking cool. So I want you guys to understand, like, okay, if you're going to do any kind of anti-aging program, etc., get it measured. What gets measured gets improved. And get measured your rate of aging, also called, the proper name is called the Dunedin pace. Dunedin pace, okay? And I could do a proper other lecture because we could talk about this for days on how that's measured and how, et cetera, and versus one clock versus the other, et cetera. We might do a part 2 of this lecture here. Will depend on your guys' questions and comments and so forth. So drop some comments whenever you see these videos, okay? Now, so you can actually measure your rate of aging. So the tests for right now that I'm telling you, the first generation and second generation clocks, they're not the best at measuring the quality of your age, right? Your true DNA age. But these third generations, they're pretty good. And all these clocks, they have a certain, I don't want to get too technical, but they have an ICC rating. So it's like measuring the quality of a watch, right? Okay, how good is this watch? Well, it has a, imagine there's like this international standard, like when you're going to go buy a diamond or something like that, there's international standards. So there's standards for these epigenetic clocks. And the ICC rating for these third generation clocks are a lot higher. And these fourth generation clocks, which I'm not going to talk about today, are going to be insane what they'll be able to do. It's really cool stuff that you could do this nowadays and measure your rate of aging. All right. Your purpose in understanding how fast you're aging now, what I said gets measured, gets improved, but now how do you adjust it? So is anti-aging a real thing? Yes. Is longevity medicine a real thing? Regenerative medicine? Yes. Is it cutting edge? Yes. Are all these modalities and so forth FDA approved? As far as I know, no. And are they going to take a minute to get approved? Yes. Is it going to take a minute for your traditional doctor to learn how to, or your traditional medical student to learn this stuff in school? I think it's going to take a really long time. I'm guessing a long, long time. I think the way the traditional medical model is, if we don't have the renaissance that I'm always evoking for, it'll probably take 100 years, easy, for this to be taught in medical school. So uh, here's the thing. So I suggest that maybe you talk to your healthcare practitioner and be like, hey, if you're interested in this, and if you're still listening to this point, you're probably very interested in this topic. Be like, do you understand anything about anti-aging? Or also, if you go to an anti-aging clinic, be very cautious with this too. Very, very cautious. Because like I said, there's no traditional training for this still. There's no there's not many guidelines and so forth to this. So when you go to these anti-aging clinics, you want to be very, 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 very cautious that you're getting proper treatment from people that understand this kind of medicine and have training and really good results with doing so. Okay, because they're unfortunately that the industry is littered with people with not the best practices. Okay, especially if you talk to a physician and he says, "Oh, 100% of my patients take this." There shouldn't be no like 100% of people taking anything. Okay, it should be personalized, data-driven medicine. Okay, personalized, data-driven. All right. And ultimately, if you could go to a place where they're involved in studies, etc., and that's something that I personally do for Biohax. I'm avidly trying to get Biohax involved in more studies and academia to really prove a point in what we're doing. Okay. So just some food for thought. Now, how do you actually practice longevity medicine? How do you actually, not as a physician, but how do you actually practice anti-aging in your life? How do you promote that? Well, first you have to measure those numbers, understand those numbers. Like I said, the rate of aging, specifically the Dunedin pace. And one thing I forgot to mention to you guys, on the first generation, second generation clocks, the failure rate in them is so high that the only agreed upon method by traditional medicine, alternative medicine, whatever you want to call all these modalities of medicine that actually really slow down your rate of aging is calorie restriction. The calorie restriction is the only way that worldwide everybody agrees that slows down your aging. So eating less, exactly. Eating less effectively slows down your rate of aging, and fasting and so forth. That's why fasting won a Nobel Prize in medicine, and so on and so forth. So, however, these first and second generation clocks, they failed in the calorie trials. For example, it's called calorie with it has a different spelling, and they failed amongst the cohort of people in the trial. So it's pretty widely established that we understand that these tests have a pretty high failure rate, and but I mean, can't hate on it. I mean, these are the first tests. I mean, beggars can't be choosers, right? So at least we have something to work with, and now they're getting significantly improved and really, really quickly improved. So very, very important. Now, for you to actually understand anti-aging and get into anti-aging, there are certain parameters that need to be optimized in your life, and certain things that need to be removed in your life. And it goes back to a lot of the philosophy that you'll see repeating itself in these videos over and over and over and over. Removal of chemical burden, removal of inflammation, and optimization of the things that your body needs and the things that your body produces, but for some reason might not be producing it to a certain extent, or the body just can't get these resources through foods and the nutritional substances that are available in our environment. So, because many times people will think, okay, let me do a stem cell treatment, and there you go, that's my anti-aging. Especially, there's really good doctors overseas doing stem cell treatments, and people fly out to do those, etc. And I'm not here by any means, shape, or form promoting stem cells. I'm just saying that it is common practice that many people will travel outside the United States to go do those stem cell treatments. And is that anti-aging? Is that not? So, in my personal view, anti-aging or practicing methods to increase your longevity is a daily practice. It's like going to the gym. It's like practice this every day. And by doing so, you're going to want to remove harmful substances from your life. Number one. decrease that chemical toxicity, decrease the pathogen toxicity, decrease those food proteins that are hurting you, right? And decrease all the food additives or try to eliminate them completely. So eating a more healthier diet. And a diet, I'm not gonna go into, was it vegan, is it keto, is it what? No. Going into a diet that is free as much as possible of processed foods. Processed foods are killing us. Processed foods are destroying our health and the health of our country. And globally, it is really wreaking havoc in our lives. Processed foods are definitely so responsible for many of the diseases we have. And that's what's cool when you're looking at anti-aging medicine and you're trying to practice that in your life and you're trying to, really live a lifestyle to live longer, to promote longevity in your life. What you're really doing, you're also avoiding diseases as much as possible. And I personally believe that you're stepping as far as possible from those diseases. So, because remember, just because you have bad genes in your life doesn't mean you have to express these genes at all. Okay. I just got actually back last night, a full genetic study on me. And sure, yeah, I have a bunch of stuff in there that I'm like, ooh, that doesn't sound too nice, right? But I have this one gene for my heart that's not a nice gene, for that can cause me to have cardiomyopathy. But I don't have to wake up that gene just because somebody told me it's called a MYBPC3 gene. Well, just because I have that gene doesn't mean I'm going to make it wake up and actually be active in my life, right? So depending on the lifestyle that I live, I'm going to wake up certain things in my body. So now if I live a lifestyle where I'm trying to promote longevity, I avoid waking up those genes, I avoid waking up those diseases, and I avoid dying sooner, and I avoid crappy life in the process of me dying, right? And I personally believe in these things and want to practice these things as much as I can, because it's my life, my health, my everything. Health is wealth, right? So going back, it is important to understand the toxins that do trigger you, that do trigger those genes. So I personally think it's important to, yes, do a gene study, do a proper gene mapping, and also, actually before even, remember, it's cool to understand the genes that are there, but what I really want to know is what is disrupting my health. Do I have a tendency to have food additives inside of me? Do I have a tendency to have excitotoxins like that I've mentioned before, like yellow 6 and blue 7 and all these things? Does my body hold on to these things, and does it make my body toxic to a point to lead to disease, and so on and so forth? That's really important. And nowadays you can do blood work to understand that. You can do blood work to understand what kind of toxins are in your life and to remove those darn toxins. And I suggest that you take the opportunity that technology has brought us to this point in time and get that blood work done, because you never know what is in your blood just might be the thing that's hampering and disrupting your life. Find out, right? So after you get that blood work, it's important then you go on to understand what's missing in your life, because there's blood work also that you could do to understand what's missing in your life. And not only blood work, but saliva studies, et cetera, for neurotransmitter studies, and so on and so forth, for you to understand what's missing, because you don't age and your hormones decline. Your hormones decline and you age. You have two chemical interventions in your life. What is that, Dr. D? Well, one is puberty and the other one is menopause or andropause. When do you have a better life? Is it after puberty or after menopause or andropause? When is there more disease? After puberty or after menopause and andropause? You don't have to be a doctor to figure this one out. It's very common sense. Your best years come after your puberty. Your best years with more vitality, more energy, and less, statistically, look this up, don't take my word for it. Statistically, there's less disease, there's less cancer, etc. in the years after puberty. After you go into menopause and andropause, where you effectively age, that's where you start to see more disease and more disruption of health. Okay, understand your hormones. Get blood work to understand your hormones. Get blood work to understand how to practice longevity in your life, how to actually do anti-aging in your life for you to die young as late as possible. concluding here, we're definitely gonna have to do a second episode on this one because there's just so much information in regards to anti-aging. But for this takeaway lecture today, if you can, go measure your rate of aging.